Let's take a look at Master Parachute Rigger certification requirements. We'll start out by having a look what PTS wants to know about this. And the PTS question says that this one is applicable to master applicants only, so senior riggers, don't worry about it. And it says the section of the Code of Federal Regulations that covers this information is 65.119. The objective is to determine that the applicant exhibits knowledge of the Master Parachute Rigger certification requirements by describing 1. The number of years of experience required, 2. The required method of packing, 3. The number and types of parachutes packed, 4. The appropriate supervisor for the packing instruction, that is for a non-certificated applicant, 5. When a written test is required. 6. What subject areas the written test covers. And 7. What the practical test requires. So let's take a look at 65119 and see whether this information is all there. It says the following. An applicant for a Master Parachute Rigger certificate must meet the following requirements. A. Present evidence satisfactory to the administrator that he has had at least 3 years of experience as a parachute rigger and has satisfactorily packed at least 100 parachutes of each of 2 types in common use in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. 1. While a certificated and appropriately rated senior parachute rigger. Or 2. While under the supervision of a certificated and appropriately rated parachute rigger or a person holding an appropriate military rating. An applicant may combine experience specified in paragraph A 1 and 2 of this section to meet the requirements of this paragraph. B. If the applicant is not the holder of a senior parachute rigger certificate, pass a written test with respect to parachutes in common use on 1. Their construction, packing and maintenance. 2. The manufacturer's instructions and the regulations of this subpart. C. Pass an oral and practical test showing his ability to pack and maintain 2 types of parachute in common use appropriate to the type ratings he seeks. Alright, so we'll go back to those questions now and see if we're able to answer them now that we've read that. It wanted to see if you exhibited knowledge of Master Rigger certification requirements by describing the number of years of experience required. That was 3 years of rigging experience. Not to be confused with 3 years as a rigger, because they clearly said that some applicants might not be senior riggers. 2. The required method of packing. Well, you have to pack them in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. You can't just stuff them in a bag and call it good. 3. The minimum number and types of parachutes packed. This is a favorite one that people slip up on by accident. So you must have packed at least 100 each of 2 different types. So that would be 200 parachutes. The favorite mistake people answer this one wrong with is to say 100 of 2 types, which could be 75 and 25, and that's not what they're saying. You must have packed at least 100 each of 2 different types. As we'll find out later when we talk about ad ratings, you could have just 20 of the 3rd rating, but I don't want to get into that right now. So it must be 100 each of 2 different types. The appropriate supervisor for the packing instruction of a non-certificated applicant. Well, it said that you could be supervised by someone holding the appropriate type rating for the parachutes that you're packing, or a military, I should say a person holding the appropriate military rating. And you can combine experience from those 2 to meet the regulation. Next question is, when is a written test required? And it said that a written test is required if the applicant is not the holder of a senior rigger's certificate. Just so you know, the written test is the same for senior or master riggers, so don't get too caught up in that, but you do need to study. 6. What subject areas the written test covers? Well, the same as a senior rigger, and they are as follows. If the applicant is not the holder of a senior rigger certificate, pass a written test with respect to parachutes in common use on 1. Their construction, packing, and maintenance, 2. The manufacturer's instructions, and 3. The regulations of this subpart. And then the next one, it says what the practical test requires. So you have to pass an oral and practical test showing his ability to pack and maintain 2 types of parachute in common use appropriate to the type ratings he seeks.